continuing on with the highlights of 100 part 2. They kind of continue on with the whole, the bullet point basically to end part 1 was, again, just them pitching the idea and, basically, again, continuing on with them, like, pitching the idea about the show about nothing. And, like, story ideas. Like, something like off the subject, that they call it. They start off with the stock tip, showing a scene where Jerry and George are discussing Superman's sense of humor. We see in The Sniffing Accountant, where Kramer, Newman, and Jerry were in the car, staking out the accountant that they were suspicious that was taking their money and using it to buy drugs. They were staking out, discussing, how days of the week feel. How Sunday has a feel, Monday has a feel, Friday has a feel, all that. We see in The Implant how George was accused of double dipping a potato chip by his girlfriend's brother. In The Watch, Kramer talks about his affinity of decaf cappuccinos. In The Boyfriend, which had a lot of references in this clip show, Jerry and George discussing their favorite explorers. I think Jerry liked Magellan, and then George liked DeSoto. In The Virgin, Elaine was telling her diaphragm story, which was not a good time to be telling it in front of Marla, who, again, was a virgin at the time. And then, of course, back to The Boyfriend again, where we have the JFK parody scene with Kramer and Newman, and the story about how they thought Keith Hernandez spit on them, but in reality, there was actually a second spitter, which, of course, ended up being pitcher Roger McDowell. Which, again, fun fact, see if you guys remember, who was originally supposed to be the second spitter? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Darryl Strawberry. But, of course, because of, Darryl's history with him, in substance and whatnot, Keith Hernandez didn't feel safe, having Darryl Strawberry spitting on fans. So that's why he suggested going with someone else, and that's why he picked Roger McDowell instead. And of course, I still love, how in the pitch and the ticket, George, like, even though all of a sudden he walks in there and he basically says the show's about nothing, and it's like, this is the show, and we're not going to change anything about it and whatnot. And now all of a sudden, this was a scene where George was like, obviously desperate to get this TV deal. It's a scene where he goes, story is, is the foundation of whatever heck it was he said. And obviously how people have to care about the characters. They gotta love the characters. This is where, of course, they wanted to have a second meeting. But, of course, again, it was because Susan stood up for them. But, of course, this is where they also talk about some good character clips. Such as Sidney Fields in The Old Man. And how grumpy he was. Babu Bhatt, who I still also say is one of the best... definitely a few that are some of the best, guest characters that they've had. Like Babu Bhatt was one. Again, of course, I always say I'm hyping this up for finale. He puts the nail on the coffin in the finale. Joe, the fruit stand manager back in the Mango, who banned Jerry and Kramer both from his fruit store. Poppy, of course, the couch, the pie, and well. He actually is in an upcoming episode as well. I don't want to give it away. Crazy Joe Davola. Yes, remember him? Kenny Bania, who is, new, but he's been around for a while. One of my personal favorites, again, Mickey. Bookman from The Library. Elaine's father, Alton Bennis in the jacket. And, of course, recently also, Mr. Pitt as well. And then, of course, we also talk about, like, self-images. Like Jerry and George arguing over which one of them is the bigger idiot. And back in the apartment episode, whenever Jerry and George are obviously they're trying to find a part for Jerry, but then when Jerry goes to take it, George obviously shows inklings that he wants the apartment too. In the handicap spot, Kramer asking Jerry and George if they think he's a hipster doofus. In the smelly car, Elaine wonders if she's not as attractive as she thinks. Jerry and George insist in the alley that they're not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. In the Mango, Elaine admits she faked orgasms with Jerry. The Visa, George saying how he is depressed. He's disturbed. He's inadequate. He's got it all because because of the girl that he was trying to make sure that she didn't think that that Jerry or Elaine were fighting him. She ends up falling for Jerry. She thinks Jerry is dark and disturbed. And of course, in the opposite, Elaine worrying that she's becoming George, which of course I still find it funny that she's saying this same time wearing glasses and whatnot, which she just looked like a spitting image of a female George. And of course, in the opposite, also George enacting his new policy and doing the opposite of whatever he feels his instinct tells him, which of course gives him like everything he ever wanted in the world. We also talk about catchphrases, where we have these pretzels are making me thirsty. Boy, I'm really starting to dislike the Drake. You're so good looking. How she's one of the low talkers. He's a bit of a high talker. He's nice, but a bit of a close talker. I don't have the square to spare. I need a hand. I have no hand. Newman. Hello, Newman. Master of your domain. King of the county. Lord of the manor. Queen of the castle. And then, of course, the last one was shrinkage. Again, I still solely love that one because of the full idea of because the backstory again with how Larry David, how like Peter Melman was struggling to come from another story of that episode, and Larry David was suggested him, the whole shrinkage story. I just love the way he told that story. So then, of course, then we get to the scene back in the shoes where they're discussing the script, where Dalrymple was getting sick to his stomach, trying to discuss the script with the Jerry show. Of course, they just show other clips, obviously just more story ideas, like Kramer stumbling to get a seat on the subway, or Kramer smoking and drinking at the same time in The Sniffing Accountant. Kramer singing opera in the opera. Kramer also having Olive scratch his back, and Kramer also having his hair on fire in the wallet. Like, obviously things that just seem to go, just the crazy things that go wrong for Kramer, basically is. The glasses where Kramer dives after Jerry's air conditioner, and the rebiologist, Kramer playing golf on the beach, and the contest, the instigation of the whole idea of the contest itself. Most of them were all like Kramer stuff and this physical comedy, like some crazy ideas again. But of course, the last one, of course, with the contest. And of course, we get to, sensitivity, how the characters did show sensitivity at times, even though whether they're being selfish or whatnot. Or how about somebody was hurt by something that they did, like George fleeing like a coward from the fire in the fire episode. Jerry apathetic's reaction of the play of the Bubble Boy. Kramer telling George's girlfriend that she needs a nose job. Elaine, I didn't get why this one was in sensitivity. Elaine feeding Owen her 60-year-old stroke-stricken boyfriend in the alternate side. Jerry's pony remark. The Bubble Boy with George asking Susan for recompense for the tolls as the cabin burns down, like in the midst of her cabin burning down. I think he's told me for the tolls, like obviously, not a right time, sensitive moment. And of course, they go back to, first they have Jake Jarmel learning that Elaine stopped off for Juji fruits for stopping to see him at the hospital. Jerry saying, continuing on with his pony remark thing. And then Kramer dropping the junior mint into the operating area, into Elaine's old boyfriend's body as they're watching the surgery. Which, of course, there continues some clips, how Kramer raves about the junior mint. We see also in the version whenever Snapple was being offered and it said no thanks. Pez being offered. The box of Juji fruits. The Clark bar. The I Love You Who. Chunkles. Chocolate Babka. It's Gore-Tex. Cashmere? No, Gore-Tex. Who's going to turn down a junior mint? It's chocolate. It's peppermint. It's delicious. That's true. George's the sea was angry that day, my friends, like an old man returning soup at a deli. which was like kind of somewhat the finale, basically, of the whole, pitching the ideas. And then finally, of course, the closing scene basically was Jerry finally acknowledging that he's behind the idea about a show about nothing. And then, of course, the car refusing to start in the parking garage. And then, of course, the last one was the ending to the Chinese restaurant whenever they decided to leave. And, of course, Seinfeld, for... And the guy smiles. But that's the clip show for a 2-part episode of the highlights of the 100. Again, I thought it was very well done. Like I said, I like how they kind of like kept it towards kind of like a how it began thing, but like instead of like doing like a documentary course about it, somewhat like, more making like a visual story, basically. Using the probably the biggest storyline Seinfeld ever did was the season arc wherever the Jerry on Seinfeld, that Jerry would be approach to do a TV show as well, and basically like do more of like a visual process of like we're talking about like characters and giving examples of that and stories example of that. It was a neat thing. Of course, when we get to the Chronicle, which is a clip show for right before the finale, somewhat of like a different approach, but it was still cool with it. But that's the highlights of the 100. We'll continue on now back to just the regular shows. The next one's actually a pretty good one. It's one that I like. Another one that I feel like is only really one storyline that I enjoy a lot, and that's, of course, George with his toupee, which you kind of pick up from the ending of the Scofflaw. But we'll talk about that next, guys. So once again, as always, what were your thoughts on the highlights of the 100? Both parts. They did a good job. Are you not a fan of clip shows, though? Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. And be sure as always to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at DemandAirboy93. Till then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night. Peace out, everybody.